So I thought we would tonight make a little tea towel, and the dimensions for your fabric for this are going to be a fat quarter, 18 by 21 inches for the top piece, and then that will be the large piece at the top of your tea towel. And then for an insert print, I have a piece that's 5 inches in width by 21 inches. And then for the bottom piece, which will be again the fabric from the top, we'll do a 5-inch piece by 21 inches. So we're going to stitch these together using a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and I'll show you why when we get done with that. So let's just put this together. One of the things I want to make sure to let you know about is don't stitch this onto the side. You're going to notice that it's longer. You want to make sure you're stitching it onto the bottom of what's going to be your tea towel. So I'm just going to put a little pin in here. You can pin or not pin. I like to pin. I just think it kind of stabilizes things a little bit when we're getting started in here. This is a nice fabric to stitch on because there's a 1/4 inch already in the pattern, so I can just kind of line it up and stitch along that edge there. And this pattern, this tutorial and the pattern will be up on my blog. And there's no charge for that. It's a free tutorial. I just think sometimes it's fun to make something that's quick and easy and you don't have to do a lot of thinking. Gives you a little success. And don't worry if your fabrics don't line up exactly right. We'll trim them off. Every piece of fabric has a different width. Some print at 44 and some print at 40. So you just kind of have to make adjustments as you go along. I'm going to take that pin out now. And I like to clip my threads as I go. That's my own idiosyncrasy, but you do you. Okay, so we've got that piece done. And then we're going to take the bottom piece. We're going to do the same thing. And I am going to flip it around here so that I can have this print on the top. Okay, I had to pause there for a second because I needed to reload my bobbin. Okay, so I'm going to tuck a little pin in this again. One of the things when you're working with a check, if you can cut along the check instead of trying to use a rotary blade and cut it on a board, you might get a square piece of fabric, you might not. If you cut it on the check, you'll get a better result. Okay, that's good. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to press this open so that I'm pressing it towards I'm going to press towards the checked fabric here. So we'll do that. And then once we have that pressed down, I'll come back and I'll show you what we're going to do. We're going to fold this down in half and then fold it again. And that'll create almost like a French seam. So it'll finish off that inside. Now you don't have to do that. If you just want to top stitch it down and have a raw edge, you can. I just think it finishes it off a little bit nicer. If you have a serger, you could serge that seam, and that would be lovely as well. So we'll be back in just a second. So I'm going to show you this right here. I've taken this seam, just like we've pressed this towards the check fabric, and what I've done is I've folded it back and then folded it right in half, right up to the stitching line. So that's what's happened up here. And then I'm ready to turn this over and pin it down so that I have a perfectly flat seam here when I stitch it. So you'll see that in just a minute. I've gone through and I have just tucked some pins in here before I stitch this down, just to make it a little bit easier to control the fabric. And we'll do the same thing with the other side once this is done. And I'm using a little bit longer stitch length. I'm using a 4. I have a Bernina, and so I'm using a setting of 4 on the stitch length. And I'm just lining up my this side seam with the inside of my open toe 1/4 inch foot. So that gives me a relatively straight point to stitch from. And it'll just look like a top stitch on the other side. So there's little bits of thread that I don't like sticking out. So we'll just trim those off and tuck it back under. Okay, there we go. And there's no need to backstitch because we're going to enfold these seams in our hemming eventually. Okay, so this is what you're going to see on the back side, and then on the top it's just going to look like a top stitch. Okay, all right, so I'm going to do the other side and I'll come back and we'll proceed with the next part. Okay, so now you can see that we've done both sides of this, encased the seam, and on the other side it looks just beautiful, like top stitching, which is what it is. And we are now going to press a 1/2 inch all the way around the fabric, and then I'll show you how we're going to do the hem on this. It's very easy. It's going to be exactly like we did the napkins. If you remember, before Christmas, I think I posted a tutorial on how to hem napkins, and we're going to do the same thing with this. So we'll show you how to do that here shortly. All right, so here we've pressed down the corners and all the way around 1/4 inch, and it doesn't have to be exact, just, you know, eyeball it. You can do it. You're just going to press this over like this. It doesn't have to be mitered or anything because we're going to do that in the next step. So what I want you to do is put it right sides up, and I want to make sure you can see this. And we're going to take this edge, we're going to hold our point right there, and we're going to take the edge and we're going to bring it up. We're going to give it a little pin right here so that we know what we're doing there. Okay, now we're going to take and fold this point out completely. We just want it out like that, okay? Okay, and then the next thing we're going to do is, you should have a disappearing ink pen or a pencil, something that will let you make a mark that will go away eventually. So we're going to take our ruler and we're going to line the straight edge up to the folded edge here, the fold of the fabric, not this side, but the folded edge of the fabric, okay? Just like this. We're going to go over, so we've got about 3/4 of an inch here, and this line on your ruler should line up with the bottom of your piece there, okay? And we've made a mark right there, and we're going to stitch that now. And I find it's easier if you go up from the bottom up. There we go. Either way, whichever way is easier for you. You just don't want to have a knot. And then back stitch once you get to the end. You're going to back stitch right off again. And then we're going to trim this. We're going to cut the thread, and then you're going to trim it so that it goes in like a wedge shape towards where you started to sew, towards the fold of your fabric, but not through that point, okay? You want to be very careful not to cut that off. And then what's going to happen is when you turn this around, it's going to poke that little seam out. It's going to make a perfect miter for you, so you can stitch down going around. Okay, so we're going to do that to all 4 corners, and I'll be back and show you the rest. Okay, so we have gone and mitered all the corners with that last technique I showed you, and now we have pressed it, brought it forward, turned our points out, and it creates an automatic miter, just like it did for the napkins. And then we're going to go ahead and stitch this down right along this edge all the way around, and then I will be back and show you the result. Okay, so we have completely hemmed all the way around, and what you end up with is nice mitered corners, just like on our napkins, all the way around. It's beautiful. Now, if you wanted to, up at the top, you could put a piece of ribbon across here before you stitch the seam down, and that would create a little loop that you could hang your towel if you wanted to just hang it like that. I like to fold mine in thirds and drape it over a towel rack, so that's just my personal preference, but you can do what you like. You can have a lot of fun with these. You don't have to have an insert. You can just use a solid piece of fabric if you like, if you have something that's pretty and colorful, or maybe you have something that's plain that you've embroidered and you just want to make a tea towel with it. They're a lot of fun. They make wonderful gifts. It's cute in a basket, maybe with some berries, or those little thinking of those little candies that look like berries. They look like blackberries and raspberries. Those would be cute in a jar with something like this in a basket tucked in. So have fun with it. I hope this was enjoyable for you, and I will have the instructions and some still photographs up on my blog along with the video, and I will post the video on YouTube as well. So there you go. Thanks.